Good morning, everyone. Welcome to your April breakfast on the Bay. We're so glad that you're all here. Everyone's having a good time. This is good. I hate to make you stop networking and talking, but we want to get the program started so we can finish on time. I want to say a big thank you for a delicious breakfast to Carla's Country Kitchen. So good. And Slow Roasted sponsors our coffee, so a big thank you to them as well. We're gonna, yeah, go ahead. You can clap for that. Coffee. I always clap for coffee. We're going to start off with a few announcements before we get the program started. So I would like to recognize our board members that we have in the room. We have Ryan Blevins from Astound. We have Steve Peck from Peck Planning. Who else am I missing? Raise your hands. We have Jeff Eccles. He's going to be one of our speakers today. And Sharice Hansen, our 2024 chairperson. She's going to give us some announcements.
Good morning, everybody. I just wanted, my husband and I were talking this morning, and I found out some piece of information that I just wanted to share with everybody that could be a positive for Morro Bay. And that is that the new Morro Bay baseball coach, Jared Zill, is also the coach of one of the most renowned travel programs, BPA. This weekend, he and David Lieberman have organized 11 teams to come play a tournament at Lila Kaiser. And so tournaments mean 50 to 100 rooms in a time period of like April is a really good revenue stream for the city. And to make this a success and entice more events, tournaments like this, Lila Kaiser, we need snack bar, bleachers, field maintenance, dirt, grass maintenance. But some really good teams are coming this weekend, such as the UAAA SA tournament division. And so if we put on a good show for them, we could have the possibility of this revenue continuing on in the future. And they also do things for soccer and lacrosse tournaments. So this means heads in beds, dinners out at our restaurants, and shopping locally. So if it's anybody's interested in making sure that this moves forward, I would like to take part and just let you guys know that there's business coming in to Morro Bay that's not just tourism on the Embarcadero. So also the Shop, Sip, and Stroll is not this Friday, but next Friday on the Embarcadero. And do we have a really good turnout ticket-wise? And so that we still do have some tickets on sale, early bird. I know that for myself, I'm going to be taking people on tours. I don't know if anybody's noticed, but there's the new development on the Embarcadero across from Sun and Buns Harbor Walk Plaza. And so I will be taking people up to the rooms to take them on tours and show them everything that I've been envisioning for the last 6 years. Also, Morro Bay Boat Rentals will be taking people down to their pontoon boats, as well as the Siren is doing drinks, tropical specialty drinks. And so that's happening in the next Friday. And I'm going to get a little deeper now. I just want to let you guys know gravity is one of the most fundamental forces in the universe. But if you remove it, you get gravy. We would like to thank Carla's Country Kitchen for being our breakfast sponsor today. Great job. I love visiting their restaurant. Best biscuits and gravy in town. Thank you.
I want to make sure to recognize that we have two council members here. So Laurel Barton and Mayor Wixom, thank you for being here. We appreciate it. So our title of our program today is Building Bridges, Navigating Housing and the Unhoused Dilemma. So we're going to have several different perspectives here on different types of housing, different stages of housing, talk about the housing ladder. Each speaker will have time to take some of your questions at the end. So be thinking about your questions that you have for them. We'll only probably have time to take, maybe 1, 2, maybe 3 questions of each of the speakers. And so with that, I would like to introduce Lauren Ramos from Capslo.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right. My name is Lauren Ramos. I am with Capslo. I'm very excited to be here. What better way to start the morning than to talk about something so controversial such as homelessness. This is fantastic. I love it. So I want to set the stage for what I'm going to say and maybe hopefully what the other speakers are going to say with a quote from Mr. Rogers. So even better, start our day with homelessness and Mr. Rogers. When I was a boy, I would see scary things in the news. My mother would say to me, look for the helpers. You will always find people who are helping. And that's what we do as Capsule. We are the helpers at the bottom of sometimes society. Homelessness is a very controversial topic. And I'd like to take 2 seconds to unpack that really quickly. And when I say homelessness, just what comes to mind? When you drive down the road and you see someone on the side of the street struggling with a mental health crisis that is clearly homeless, what comes to mind? And if you truly individually dig deep on that and ask yourself, why is that your first emotional response? And dig deeper on that, why is that my response? And dig deeper and deeper and deeper, you'll come to the place where we all can agree that that person, that individual is a human, they are a brother or sister, and they deserve better. However, even myself who's in this field, I still get an emotional response when I see that person or they're in my way when I'm walking down the sidewalk or anything like that. But we always have to come back to this is a human being that is one of us, is our neighbor. And so I just want to kind of set the stage right there that that's who we're here to serve. That's why Capslo exists. Sorry, my phone froze up, so I want to get back to my notes, make sure I stay on track. But so just kind of set the stage there. And I know that's not an easy place to go to right in the morning, but I wanted to make sure we're all on the same page that we are here to help the most vulnerable in our community, and that's why Capslo exists. Our mission as an organization is to create communities where all people have equal opportunities to achieve self-sufficiency. And I emphasize all because that's what we do. That's very challenging on a day-to-day basis. Running programs like I get the opportunity to do, it's not easy to focus on that all because oftentimes the behaviors and experiences of people are very annoying. But they are still people and we're here to help them. And so we go about doing that by addressing all kinds of causes of poverty and empower people. And we walk alongside them through a bunch of partnerships and different programs. I have the opportunity to oversee 5 of our divisions, our energy and weatherization, our adult day services, our health and prevention, and multiple other programs. But obviously I'm here to talk about homeless services. And as Capslo, we started providing homeless services in the 80s when we realized some of our families that we were serving through Head Start and childcare were actually homeless. And so we started that and we continue to do that till this day. Our biggest, most visible program is our homeless service center. So I want to walk through what we do at the homeless service center and then leave some time at the end for questions. And I'll share some data with you. That's not pretty. The people we're helping, the numbers are just continuing to grow. And hopefully we can lead into a conversation about some solutions and some opportunities there. So our homeless service center, it often gets referred to as a shelter, but it's way more than that. And it starts with our street outreach. So we are on the streets. We're on the streets here, trying to connect with people and engage people and walk alongside them on their journey to not be homeless. The ultimate goal of outreach is to get people engaged in services, whether that's with us or with another service provider or a partner of ours. And it takes time. If you have a chance, check out our social media, and there's a great story, Brian's story that we have on there. He was downtown in San Luis for 12 years, and it took one of our outreach workers hundreds and hundreds of visits to get him just to engage in services, just to go get his general assistance, to get food stamps. It took hundreds of visits. It's free money for him, and took him a long time to trust us and be able to do that. But that's what outreach is about. It's about meeting people where they're at, getting them their basic needs met, and being able to do that. Getting them on site at 40 Prado is a huge step for us. In March, we had 482 people come through the door just in 1 month. And to compare that to last year, we averaged 397. So we're seeing almost 90 more people a month come through our doors for help. We provide coordinated entry, which is a whole complicated system, but the ultimate goal of that is to get assessments done and get people connected to resources. And then we really provide 3 things on site during the day: resources, supports, and services. As simple as food for someone, a bus pass, or getting people connected with both formal and informal supports. We have a great group of people to provide AA services. One of my favorite ones is on Friday nights. We have Jesus Coffee, where a church comes in and provides coffee and just sits down and talks to people. It's very, very impactful. And then getting them connected to, and sometimes it's hot cocoa. If you don't want coffee, it's Jesus Cocoa. And then a bunch of partners. CHC is our healthcare provider on site, so we're able to get people connected to healthcare. TEMA is a great partner. We have all kinds of partners on site. We provide meals, and we do that through a bunch of partnerships as well. People's Kitchen being a primary partner. We provided 31,061 meals in the first 3 months of this year. Last year, we provided 26,000 in that same time frame. So again, just the growth of need in the community. And on a little side note, we rescued 13,000, almost 14,000 pounds of food from going into the landfill. So that was a side benefit to the community that we provide. And then obviously our sheltering options is the biggest thing. It gets people off the street at night. And this is where we've seen the biggest impact. We provide 10 RCP beds, recuperative care program, which is basically people coming out of the hospital to recover from whatever happened in the hospital. We have 5 rooms for families. The beds fluctuate depending on size of families, but we can put 2 to 3 families in a room. And then we offer night by night. And I want to talk about a recent transition we've made with our sheltering option. We moved towards what we're calling the housing focused shelter program, which is a 90-day bed and a case manager. And the combination of those, we've seen significant impact in the first 6 months of operating that program. And as a program implementer, the first 6 months of operating anything new is not fun. It's not easy. We make a lot of mistakes, but we housed 81 people in the first 6 months of that program. So we're very, very excited about thank you. And even more exciting to me is our efficiency with that. So the effectiveness is great, but the efficiency, it's taken us an average of 61 days to find someone housing and get them into the appropriate housing in just the first 6 months of that program. And for those people not in our world, we take the approach of working with the most vulnerable first. So the first people we admitted into that program were the highest need people. So the fact that we got that much success that quickly with the most vulnerable people in our community, I'm very excited as we can work through that list and move people into housing. Now, the downside is we have 210 people on our waiting list to get into that program. So there's a huge need there that we're working through as a community. And then we offer the night by night sheltering, which is basically the remaining beds in the 90-day program. So if we have someone going to housing, we don't just leave that bed open until we can admit someone else into that bed. Whoever's there on site gets a bed. And then we operate a warming center when the weather permits. And then my staff are absolutely amazing. As much as it drives me bananas, we run an overflow shelter, which is basically them pulling out a cot, making sure someone's not on the street. And it's a wear and tear in our building, which is my first ask is, if you want to support us, just maintaining the building is huge for us. We are just, you were talking about heads and beds earlier. We're technically supposed to be about 100-bed shelter. We've been running at 123 on average per night for the last almost year and a half. So if you're running a hotel and you were over capacity, I don't know how you do that in a hotel, but you don't want to run a hotel at 100% capacity, because you get a water leak in one room, you're in trouble. So we are busy. And so that's just by the numbers and a couple stories in there. And I'd like to talk quickly about some challenges and opportunities, which to me are the same thing. There's not challenges and opportunities. There's something, and it's both a challenge and an opportunity. The first one is the county strategic plan. I think we have a great strategic plan put together by community partners. And the biggest piece in that we need to work on is clarifying roles between the county and the cities and community service providers. And it was kind of cool to see that our new county chief administrative officer kind of said that in his opening press release, that those roles need to be clarified going forward, so that we're not operating, I'll say, there's 7 cities plus a couple community service districts plus the county. We're not operating 12 different strategic plans as a community. We as a region have to address homelessness together. And that means we're going to have difficult conversations. So I would say that's our first challenge and opportunity. Secondarily, on behalf of all the service providers in the community, the next one is funding. We've been very lucky to have COVID dollars up to this point, but we've hit that cliff, and we've built capacity for shelters. 5CHC has built their cabins program and on building more. Echo has built additional beds, but keeping those running really comes July 1st. As a homeless service provider, July 1st is Groundhog's Day. We have to figure it out all over again, how we're going to make this work. So that's our second challenge and opportunity. And then third, Johnson versus Grants Pass, which is basically a play on the Boise decision. We're going to find out on Tuesday the ruling from the Supreme Court. And so keep your eyes peeled on that. It's basically, is it cruel and unusual punishment to ticket or arrest someone for sleeping outside? And it's really focused on public property. So all joking aside, the grass outside of City Hall in San Luis Obispo is very beautiful, but this has potential to change that pretty quickly. A huge opportunity for us as an agency and us as a community is we just purchased 2+ acres next to 40 Prado. And we're very excited about what that means for us as a community. It's a blank slate. I'm calling it a canvas that we get to paint on and decide what we do as a community. So we're looking for partners to come in and support us in that. And then I see movement over here, so I'm probably over time. I would say 2 more. We need to build housing of all types. So it doesn't matter what type of housing we build, we need to figure that out. And then in order to do that, I think we need to tackle policy around vacation rentals, ADUs, commercial conversions, all that kind of stuff, and streamlining for builders to be able to build quicker and faster, because we need more housing just for our own economic development of our community. So thank you. Couple questions. Yep, definitely. Questions? Yeah, no. What is my take on vacation rentals? Hey. It's either way, right? Like vacation rentals drive the economy, which then can turn into other housings. I don't think there's like a hard and fast rule. I don't have a specific. It's one of those things where vacation rentals are fantastic. At the same time, they kill our housing stock. So it's, I would be similar. This is probably it's like abortion, right? Like I'm all for women's rights, but are you killing someone? Like, I don't know. So yeah, sorry. Go way controversial. Yeah. I don't know. They're both? Yeah. Yeah, I don't have our recent demographics, but on a like an annual average, we're about 50% from San Luis Central region, 20 to 30% from the other parts of the county, and then like 10 to 15% from outside the county. So yeah, and that coordinated entry I put over real quickly. We intake over half the people in the homeless service system in our entire region at 40 Prado. So we work with a bunch of providers, but we're doing over half of that work. Cabins for Change is a program run by 5CHC in South County. They're small, basically like an ADU, a small cabin unit, and they're doing the same thing we're doing. We as a service community have all gone to what we're calling that housing focused shelter program, where we're combining shelter and case management or housing navigation for people to work them through. But Cabins for Change is a new program down south that's added sheltering capacity. But again, they're in the same boat of how do they keep it going and funded going ongoing. So maybe one more question.
I've heard some say that you moderate housing for below moderate housing. Almost to some part of social issue. Most of probably social issue, the housing outcome. So is this better characterized as a social or mental health issue, or is it a housing supply? We tend to bundle them all together, like if you feel 3 more houses, then it's going to help. It's not.
It's not going to solve it, right? If you talk to 100 people that are in our building today, you're going to get 100 different stories that are very complex. We both. So we have to address the social side of things, but we have to address the housing side of things. Homelessness is often referred to as like the last safety net. Like every other safety net has missed or failed or anything like that. That's why someone ends up there. So thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. That was really great. Even the jump to the comparison. I would like to introduce our board member and also the executive director of the Housing Trust Fund, Jeff Eccles.
Good morning, Morro Bay. Thank you all for being here. What does the American dream mean to you? I'd really like you to think about that for a moment, because each of our answers is going to be slightly different, but I believe there's a common thread. So what does the American dream mean to you? Think about that for a moment. If we went around the room, we would find a variety of answers. But I believe that there's one thing that we would have in common throughout all our definitions of the American dream. And that's that we want to leave the world a better place for our children and provide more opportunity for them than we had. I don't think there's anyone in the room that would disagree with that definition. And so I'm going to tell you just a little story about, well, I'll share my story with you. When I grew up in a very abusive household, had a very, very challenging childhood. So I wanted to get out of that place as soon as I could. So when I was 17, I spoke with some friends and we rented a place down in Long Beach, California. And I was able to do that. We were able to put together our money. I was working at a place called Fedco down there, which doesn't exist anymore, kind of like the Kmart, which doesn't exist anymore, or Jimco. And we were able to pool our dollars together and rent a little apartment in Long Beach. And as soon as I graduated from high school, I was always gifted being pretty good at academics just because it got my mind off of other things that were happening at home. I applied to Long Beach State. And I went to Long Beach State University. And I paid for my own tuition, and I bought my books, which were more expensive than the tuition back then. And I got a job at that time, which was at Price Club, Costco today. And it was a decent paying job. I was actually, they were Teamsters back then. So I got a decent wage, and I would work a lot. I'd work 25 to 30 hours a week, but then go to Cal State Long Beach at the same time. 4 years, graduated, got my degree. Went on to work hard, become a productive member of society. And now, 40 years later, I'm standing before you. Here is the scary part of this story. And I've worked the numbers because my degree, by the way, is in finance and economics. So I've got a background in numbers. I've looked at the inflation adjusted numbers. This is horrifying to me. I cannot do, if I were to be a 20-year-old today, I would not be able to do what I did back in 1982 to 1987 at Long Beach State. The numbers simply do not work. That's so frightening to me because the definition of that is a decline in opportunity. It's an erosion of the American dream that we all hold so dear. Housing is at the foundation of that dream. Stephen Peck asked you, is it the social issue or the housing issue? My answer to that would be yes. It's both. I see it as both. We know that homes are much less affordable based on the price of the home and income than they were 40 years ago when I was a kid. So that's why this issue is so vitally important to us, and that's why we're talking about it today. I'm going to go over a few numbers with you that illustrate some of the challenges that we face in the housing industry. But first, I just want to tell you a little bit about the Housing Trust Fund, who we are and what we do, because we haven't, I'll be honest with you, the Housing Trust Fund just turned 20 this last year. We're celebrating our 20-year anniversary, and we have not done a good job of sharing with the community who we are and what we do, because very few people know what we do. So my mission over the next 5 years is to change that. The Housing Trust Fund is a nonprofit. We're a 501c3 community lender. We're certified through the United States Treasury as a community development financial institution, CDFI, which allows us to apply for grants through the Treasury and through the state. Over the last 20 years, we have made 70 loans for a total of about $45 million, which have contributed to 1,500 units of affordable housing in our county. We started with about $120,000 with the fundraising push more than 20 years ago. Anita Robinson, Jana Nichols from 5 Cities Homeless was one of our initial board members. And we got a little bit of seed money from the county and then Rotary. I mean, literally, they just went out hat in hand and we got a couple $100,000 together. Today, we have a $30 million lending portfolio. So we've come a long way in those 20 years. And the beauty of our program is it's a revolving loan fund, which means those dollars remain here in the county in perpetuity. So we're able to, one of the very first loan we gave was to Family Care Network, and they just paid it off. And I think it was $130,000 or whatnot. That money now is recycled into projects with CAPSLO, with HASLO, with People's Self-Help. So it's a really, really neat model, the revolving loan fund. All right, I'm going to close out with just talking a few numbers. We had a great planning commission meeting last night, and our planning commission here is looking at solutions. Let's just talk about why rents are so high. We talk about homeownership. Well, I mentioned to you in my story that I started off renting, and there were a bunch of guys. We were overpopulated in one little apartment. But then I was able to get an apartment with just one other roommate, and eventually got my own apartment, and then eventually bought a condo, and then eventually bought a house. So that's, we heard the housing ladder mentioned earlier, and that's the housing ladder. That's a healthy housing ladder. Right now, the bottom rungs of that ladder simply do not exist. So you're going to be hearing from one of the largest nonprofit builders in the county. The two are People Self-Help and then Housing Authority of San Luis Obispo, about how they're adding supply at those bottom rungs. But without the nonprofit builders, there are no bottom rungs. You know, when you look at a one-bedroom apartment in San Luis Obispo for $2,000, again, those numbers that I shared with you about my childhood don't add up. So let's look at something. One of our planning commissioners last night, Eric Meyer, who's a really smart, a very bright fella, mentioned that the minimum cost to build a place is about $400,000 per unit. I'm going to be a little generous and say $350,000 a unit as far as costs. And Scott's nodding and smiling a little because that's much below what is going on out in the public sector right now. And we want to build on that lot a fourplex. So, and we're going to build multifamily. So those are rentals. But we have to buy the land. That $350,000 per door is the per unit cost. And that's labor, you know, the sticks, the permitting, all the things we talk about as far as the cost of housing. We're also going to pay $400,000 for that plot of dirt out there. All right, so $350,000 a unit, $400,000 for the lot. It comes up to $1.8 million. So if we divide that by 4, because there's 4 units, $450,000 a unit, people are going to invest their money to do that. There's something in the industry called a cap rate. Basically, it's your return on your investment. If a person wanted to get 5% on their return on that illustration, they would have to charge $1,875 a month in rent. Here's the problem. They've taken risk. They've allocated $1.8 million. And guess what you can get in the money market today? 5% with zero risk. So am I, as a developer, going to take 2 years, invest $1.8 million and get 5% on my money when I can lay on a beach in Hawaii and put it in the money market? Of course I'm not. Let's bump it up to 6%, the return on investment, the cap rate. You'd have to rent it for 20, can't read my own writing here, $22.50 a month. So those numbers really don't work. Let's be a little bit more generous and say that you can get this down. And this is where the numbers actually start to work a little bit more. That a total cost of $400,000 a unit. That means at 6%, you could rent at $2,000 a month. Still not quite there. At $300,000 a unit, total cost. This includes the land, and a lot of times the land is the difficult part. At 6% cap rate, you could rent it out for $1,500 a unit. Now we're starting to get into an affordability range. And the reason that I go through those numbers with you, not just because I'm a finance and economics guy, but I wanted you to see the difference that the total cost makes and how that specifically relates to rental prices. So what we need to work on is reducing those total costs, that top line costs, through a lot of the things that we talk about already till we're blue in the face, streamlining the permitting process, reducing costs. One of the ways that we do that in the nonprofit world is by eliminating the land purchase expense, by having a jurisdiction donate the land. That's one of the things that really has spurred a lot of affordable development in the county. And I'll just close by saying this: when we do talk about affordable housing, typically those of us in the affordable housing industry and affordable housing services, we do mean subsidized, deed restricted housing. We're not talking about accessible or attainable. That's the word we're using a lot. Attainable housing. Attainable housing means a developer goes out in those type of illustrations that I gave you, builds 4 units and rents them out, and can rent them out at an attainable level for somebody that is a teacher in town. And right now, of course, we know those numbers don't work either. So I'll close with that, and just one little inkling of hope in terms of the American dream. My 2 kids are 20. They graduated from Morro Bay High 2 years ago. My daughter's here, lives in Cuesta. She rents an apartment with 3 other girls in San Luis Obispo. She's kind of doing what I did, but Dad's helping her. I didn't have any help. My son, I could show you my phone. He and I have been texting a lot this last week, talking about how much we miss each other. My birthday was last week. And he said, Dad, I just wish we could have barbecues together the way we used to on the weekends. He's living in Nebraska, in Lincoln, Nebraska, because he has a good job in a factory. He's making $33 an hour, rent's affordable, and he and his fiance are doing well, but they couldn't do that here. So he had to move to another state, and that's not an uncommon story. But I miss him. The hope that we have is that we've got intelligent, bright, inspired people working to bring that American dream back. Thank you. Any questions at all? I know the finance part. Stephen, yes.
Not questioning just the color, of course, the numbers are right. I'm going to only add to the keeping around influence. Just all your costs, that would be fine, but typically what we're confronted with is you have to add a vacancy, you have to finance it. And a lot of things where have the money where you're going to do your 401k. And you want 7% or 10% of your pension. So it's not like how much is Steve going to give up to pay for this project. The other line is kind of on the front end. You set risk out there with the and it's not inconsequential. I work on a project with 7 people where my partners $7 million getting them totally at risk. One of my check they wrote before they even had paper lot. Now that one is 20% So the one thing that I think Steve's been working on is compressing that schedule because if I can tell a client that they can go into this market, you have some concepts, you connect the dots, and it's very predictable. I can sell that. But it's really got to look at just formulated and put it down here. You just change the wrong directory, the person has a different idea. Because people stay away, the screen at night and stay away. So there are things you can do in committing thoughts that I feel there's some confidence with capital.
Yeah, excellent comments. I've worked with Stephen Peck the last 10 years in this industry as well. And he's the numbers and spreadsheet guru of the county, very good with statistics and numbers in a meaningful way. And I painted a best case scenario with those numbers that I was giving you to sort of a simplified version, but I certainly would endorse everything that Stephen just mentioned. Any other questions? Great. Thank you so much.
Well, it's a pleasure to introduce a familiar face around here. Scott Collins is now with the Housing Authority of San Luis Obispo. We got a lot of housing titles here. Welcome, Scott Collins.
All right, that's a tough act to follow there. So Scott Collins, Executive Director for the Housing Authority of San Luis Obispo, HASLO for short. Just wanted to tag on this idea or this mental exercise about a fourplex, in doing, the mental gymnastics to how you're going to pencil that out. Well, in California, we've made it illegal to build those units by our own choice because we want to preserve the American dream of a single family resident. Can you imagine only having one kind of car to buy on the market? Housing is the most overregulated system in our world, with maybe the exception of what Jeremiah experiences in fishing. So we've done this to ourselves. So I just want to start off with that controversial statement. So what's the outgrowth of that? Cost of living and housing rents have increased significantly over the last 2 decades, especially since COVID. A high percentage of low-income residents, those who make 50% of the area median income and below, are extremely rent burdened in our county, meaning they spend over 50% of their income on housing alone. Okay, let that sink in. Statewide, we are short about 1 million units of affordable housing stock, not to mention the 2 or 3 million we're missing for the rest of the market. Translates into renters needing to earn more than $40 an hour or $80,000 a year just to afford rent in our community. Seniors are the fastest growing demographic of people falling into homelessness in their state, in our county. It's not drug addicts, it's not mental health patients, it's people who can't afford to live here, who've worked here their whole lives, not to mention not being able to have your kids live alongside you like we used to be able to. And again, it's because we've done this to ourselves, because we wanted to preserve that idyllic lifestyle at the expense of other options for housing. So why is stable and affordable housing important? Stable housing leads to better education outcomes, better health outcomes, better economic outcomes, as Lauren had mentioned, for the participants, but as society as a whole. We have a broken housing system and it's rampant. It's across the country now. It started here. COVID helped expand it across when people were trying to find cheaper places to live. They had capital, had access to that COVID money, and now our housing system is stuck. So how to solve that? I don't have all the answers. I can just point to the problem, but we are trying to address it on the lower end at the Housing Authority. We have two major programs that, again, address those who make between 50% of the AMI down to zero income. So we have the voucher program, which is a federal program. If you're income qualified, you will spend 30% of your income on housing. So you have 70% for the rest of your life, expenses like transportation, food, healthcare, et cetera. And the federal government subsidizes the rest of your rent. So let's say your rent is $2,000 a month, but you make $1,000 a month. That doesn't really work, but you're only going to spend $300 a month on rent. So you have that rest of your paycheck to cover your life's expenses. So it really does create that stability that those families are seeking. We do partner with Capslo, Echo, the other homeless services providers to provide set-aside vouchers where they can use those to take people who have gone through their 90-day program and get them into housing. So a lot of those folks that you mentioned, the 90 who have been housed, come through that program. Our other side of the house is our projects. We've built almost 1,000 units in the last 20 years for seniors, for families, for veterans, and more we're pushing into special needs, which includes folks who are homeless. We provide services on site, residential services, which is about community building, about self-sufficiency, and helping youth, after-school programs, and now more and more, because we're trying to help folks coming out of Capslo and other homeless providers, supportive housing, because getting somebody housed is just the beginning of the healing process. It starts obviously in the 90-day program, but just because you're housed doesn't mean everything is hunky-dory. If you've been living on the street like that gentleman for 12 years, you got a lot of wounds and healing to do. So we have case managers that help get people moving in that right direction. Some people may never be able to work again, but we want to help those who are able to get jobs, get access to services, and really begin recovery. And these projects are primarily funded through the tax credit program. It used to be that the federal government would build housing, but that sort of went by the wayside in the 80s. And now we're using tax incentives to help create new pathways to housing. I think that program has generated over 3 million housing units since the 80s, which is tremendous. And we've built 1,000 of those. So some of the challenges right now, for every voucher we have 5 families who are also eligible who can't gain one. So there's about 20 to 25,000 people in our community who would be qualified, and only about 5,000 can access that because of federal funding. The cost of construction, cost of money, cost of insurance, the aforementioned added layers of regulation at the local level create additional burdens to get housing done. The flip side to that on the opportunity front is we're getting a lot built. Houselo, our People Self-Help partners, and others have built a lot of housing. Just in the last 5 years, we've built over 350 units, and we have 3 more projects that broke ground this February and 2 more potential projects next year. So we're very, very excited about that. The state has listened. They began addressing housing in 2017 after a lot of consternation and battling with local governments. I realized, some of this has to be taken over at the state level. I know it's controversial. We all love local control. I was a city manager. I know all about local control. You don't want somebody from Sacramento telling you what to do, but sometimes we need to listen to that voice, to think about those who aren't in the room about what their needs are going to be and what how that can play out and serve you in the long run. So the state has made it much easier for affordable housing projects to get built. We have more certainty, like Steve Peck was saying, about the timelines. It just makes it easier to get things built. And we have great partners like the city of Morro Bay who help fund projects. The county is stepping up. Housing Trust Fund, Jeff Eccles, his organization is fantastic. They've helped us build hundreds of units. And in addition, at the state level, you'll see a ballot initiative called ACA 1. Not saying you should or shouldn't vote for it, but it will allow, if it's passed, allow for there to be more opportunity for local bond measures to build more housing locally. So be on the lookout for that. But in closing, I know I said some things that are controversial, but the fact of the matter is we have a lot of work to do. And I'm very excited to be part of a team that can address one part of the housing conundrum. But it really is on all of us to figure out the different pathways for housing, not just for low income, but for all of us. It really is a crisis level. But there are solutions, and I'm so appreciative of the city of Morro Bay for making housing a priority, and all the cities in our county have made housing a priority. So we're bound to come up with the right solutions. So thank you. Okay, I can take one question, Jane, you got it.
When you're in the position when you can't build affordable and low-income community housing. And you, in very specific terms, tell us what kind of engage differently in terms of policy decisions or citizens to change them.
Yeah, I think some of it the state is addressed by right, building. If you're going to do 100% affordable, it's effectively impossible to stop those projects. That's a sledgehammer approach, but that's what it took to see some change. I would like to see that approach to market rate. I know we think of developers as big bad meanie people that all about profit, and sure they're about profit, but who isn't about profit on the business side? But they also create a public good. So I think it's important to think about how we can extend the things that are working on affordable housing to market rate. But that transition is challenging because, again, we've been so used to as local governments having almost complete control. So zoning deregulation, I think, is a huge start, and it's been paying dividends for folks like ourselves. Yeah, thank you.
I'm actually going to introduce myself, which is weird. I am the interim CEO here at the Chamber. I'm Jocelyn Brennan, but really this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart because with my company, what I normally do is eat, sleep, and breathe housing all day. So you can guess whose idea this was for a topic for Breakfast on the Bay. One of my roles is that I am the government affairs director for the realtors in San Luis Obispo County. So there's 3 association of realtors. There's North County, there's Pismo Coast, and then there's Slow Coastal. And Slow Coastal is a sponsor of the breakfast today. So a big thank you to them. And they represent the coast, so Los Osos all the way up to the north coast and the city of San Luis Obispo. So in total in our county, there's approximately 2,000 realtors or real estate affiliated businesses like title companies, insurance, lenders, things like that. And they are on the front lines of people buying homes. So I wanted to sort of bring the market rate perspective or the developer's perspective. So what the realtors really do is they advocate for home ownership. So our previous speakers were talking, as they clarified, about deed restricted affordable housing. And that is what I would call the first step in the housing ladder. Actually, if we go back to CAPSLO, that transitional temporary housing is really that first step, and then getting into something deed restricted so that someone can get on their feet. But when someone gets into that next step, which is home ownership, they can break that poverty cycle, they can build equity, and they can move up that housing ladder. And we talk a lot about the housing ladder because people move up it and people move down. That family that had 3 kids and needed that big house with a yard. Well, when they have an empty nest or they're getting older, they might want to go back down to a condo. Then that person who started out in a condo, maybe that was their first home, then they move up to that single family home, so on and so forth. So we do need all types of housing. The the larger state arm for the realtors is the California Association of Realtors, and they are one of the, I would say, top 5, maybe even top 3 strongest lobbying groups in Sacramento. And a lot of these state laws that we see that have, made it easier to build housing, they have either sponsored or advocated for in some way. And a lot of the anti-housing laws, a lot of the things that make it harder to build market rate housing, they oppose in Sacramento, and they really celebrate those housing champions. So some of our local elected officials are what I would call housing champions, and then we also have some of our state representatives that are pro-housing, and so we really like to celebrate those folks. One of the things that they advocate for is something called the California Dream for All. So this is a fund it used to just be for first-time home buyers. It had, I forget how many millions of dollars in it. It might have been 2 billion, I'm not sure. And all the funds were exhausted in 11 days. So they did it again this year. And this year it's for, you have to be the first person, you have to be a first-time generational home buyer. So if you're your first person in your family to buy a home, and those are, I think that actually opened last week. So that is one thing that they really advocate for in Sacramento. And then I do a lot of local advocacy. So I just want to talk really quickly, because I know we're running out of time, about just what we're seeing as trends in market rate. I'm working on a project in South County that's the biggest housing project we've had in the last 25 years in our county. And some of the things that we're seeing are trending here in our county and in Santa Barbara County. Things like having on-site childcare, things like having commercial amenities so that people can walk to what they need. They're not having to, add to our climate crisis. We're seeing down payment assistance programs. So this project has a down payment assistance program, $3.2 million for first-time home buyers. And then we're also seeing something called a local priority, where we're really trying to give our local workforce priority for those home sales. And also in this project in particular, won't be announced till next week, but there's going to be a priority for the people's self-help housing for that school district's teachers and classified employees. And you would be surprised how many of the people who are teaching our kids and working with our kids qualify for those low income programs. And so they will get a priority at this location as well. And then also having that full range of housing ladder options within one development. So having deed restricted, having multifamily apartments for rent, having the smaller condos, and then all the way up to the single family and then the larger homes. When we're seeing, we were we were nerding out as housing people over here talking about there's a momentum right now. There's a pro-housing movement, which is so important. And so I go around a lot asking people to come speak at public comment, because normally it's a complaint-driven system. And usually you get a lot of neighbors who don't want new development. And we're starting to see people who are coming out and saying, yeah, we need housing. I'm an employer. I can't keep my employees because there's not enough housing, or I want my kids to be able to live here. And it's really cool to see. So if you want to be part of that, let me know. There's a big hearing on Tuesday, and I'll try to rope you in. One of the things that CAR does is they provide a robust amount of data and statistics for housing, and I can drill down. I'm actually presenting to the Planning Commission in May. I can drill down to specifically Morro Bay or countywide or any city in the county. And one of the things that is just frightening is that there's 58 counties in California, and San Luis Obispo County is the 3rd least affordable in the state. So it truly is a housing crisis. And the more you can educate yourself and get involved, the better for all of us, the better for all the chambers, because, housing unlocks opportunities for every other sector, for the workforce, for education, and for economic development in our region. So, okay, I'm gonna take that hat off, and now I'm gonna go back to being chamber CEO. We have a few announcements from one of our sponsors. We're going to start off with Vistra and Kimberly Hilly.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kimberly Hilly. As she said, I am in community affairs for Vistra. Vistra owns the old Morro Bay power plant site. And as most of you know in this room, we have the proposal to build an energy storage facility on that site. We know that there's a lot of interest and a lot of questions about that site. So we're actually hosting a series of community meetings for the community to come out, learn more, ask your questions, and we just really just want to engage with you. We held our last community meeting last month. We're going to be holding another community meeting this coming Wednesday, so a week from today. There's flyers on everybody's tables. The meeting will be on April 24th from 6 to 8 p.m. At the same location that it was last time, which is the Del Mar Elementary School auditorium. The focus of that meeting will be discussing the project, obviously. Safety will be a huge focus. We understand that is the top priority for the community, as it is for us as well. And we'll also be discussing some community benefits. So there will be some new information. If you came out last time, thank you. But please come out to this meeting as well. You can find more information about it at the morrobayenergystorage.com. We also encourage everybody, if you have a question, to go ahead and submit your questions there through the website. On that website, there's also the information about the proposal, but there's also the different reports that we presented at the meeting last time, as well as the draft EIR, a link to that. There's even a link to actually watch the old presentation from last month. So not old, just the previous presentation from last month. Additionally, the community meeting will be streamed on SlowSpan again. So if you can't make it, you can go ahead and watch it online as well. So thank you all very much.
And speaking of homes, we have Morro Bay Appliance, Julie Nichols.
Hi, I'm Julia Nichols. Actually, it's okay.
I'm Chris
my
Nichols.
husband.
And we are the owners of Morro Bay Appliance. We recently purchased the business from Mike and Annette in February. So new to the community of Morro Bay. And yeah, looking forward to serving the citizens here. I remember Scott. I used to work for the city of Morro Bay when Scott was city manager here. So some familiar faces in the room. And yeah, so a little bit about the business. It's been in the community for 60 years. And, it's kind of been a staple here, and we're looking to continue that with the community and be a part of the community. We're excited to be here.
Yeah.
And so a little bit about like what we do. We sell new and refurbished appliances, but we also do service calls. So we go out and diagnose and we'll order parts and fix people's broken appliances. And a little bit like since we've taken over the business, we actually hired a second service tech to keep up with demand and getting back to people in a timely manner, because that's one thing we've noticed is it can take a while with just one employee getting back and installing parts and getting people's appliances fixed.
Yeah, we're also trying to expand the refurbished side of the business too, getting more affordable appliances in, so people have a place to go locally.
Yep. And then yeah, we do installation of appliances, dryer vent cleaning. That's kind of just a basic like outline of what we do. So cool. That's
We have two really big events coming up that Lindsay's going to tell us about before we adjourn.
Hello. This is always my favorite part, the public speaking. But as Sharice touched on, we're excited. We have Shop, Sip, and Stroll down on the Embarcadero, and that is going to be next Friday, April 26th. Tickets are on sale, and as you can see, we're going to be doing a really good flash sale tomorrow. So if you want to get cheap tickets, otherwise they're $20 pre-sale and then $25 at the door. Check-in will be at the Giant Chessboard, and we have this year, very excited, is we have $10 designated driver tickets. So be safe. Ubers are always difficult to get, so make sure you have a DD. And they get all the food and non-alcoholic tastings, and we have been increasing food, which we're excited about. And we have 19 stops, so the Embarcadero is going to be real busy. So buy your tickets, and you can buy your tickets online at morechamber.org/3S. Thanks, Jody. I didn't write that part down. And then the other thing that we're excited about is our annual awards gala. So we will be doing our Business of the Year, Nonprofit of the Year. We have Citizen of the Year and Living Treasure. So one opportunity that you have as business owners or community members is to sponsor this event. So this is Morebay's Big Night Out. As a sponsor, you do either get seats for the event or you can get a table depending on what level you sponsor. And a big portion of your sponsorship helps to cover the cost of the ticket for the person who's winning that award. So it's just really nice to give back to your community and come get dressed up and hang out. Aaron sometimes wears a tuxedo, so we can always hold our fingers for that, and just wear, whatever you want, honestly. So yeah. So if you're interested, please get a hold of me and we can talk about your sponsorship opportunities. May 31st. It's a Friday. Closed. Do you want to invite everyone for next month? I wrote it down.
No, you do it.
Okay. Wrote it down. And then we just want to invite everybody to next month's Breakfast on the Bay. We're excited. It's going to be May 15th and it's Mastering Money. So we're going to talk about finance, strategic planning, and the power of LLCs. Like restructuring. Why would you restructure your business? What's a good idea? So all kinds of different stuff. And then you can buy tickets online and breakfast will be by Human Being. Yep. If you didn't know, it's locally owned and they're lovely. They will also be featured down on the Embarcadero for Shop, Sip, and Stroll.
We have added an online version as well for this. So if you know, folks, we're really trying to extend the invite for Breakfast on the Bay to the North Coast, our friends and neighbors to the north and their businesses in Los Osos area. So if you know of anyone who maybe would like to attend, but maybe can't be here in the morning, they can buy a virtual ticket and watch online. And if they didn't even have a chance to watch it online, we can always send them the link. So thank you everyone for being here. Try to meet someone that you haven't met before you leave. Get a business card, give a business card. Thanks.